This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr. Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. The sixth novel in the James Reese series is coming this spring, 2023. It's titled Only the Dead and is available for pre-order now. My guests today, plural, Daniel Winkler and Kevin Holland. Daniel Winkler is the knife maker behind the Winkler tomahawk that is featured in the Terminal List series and did all the blades for the movie Last of the Mohicans. Amazing guy. Kevin Holland served at the highest levels of special operations, both in the Navy and in the Army, had a stint in between as a game warden in North Carolina. Once again, an incredible guy, and I am honored to call both of these men friends. And now, without further ado, here's Daniel Winkler and Kevin Holland.
Awesome. Here we are.
Yeah.
Daniel Winkler, Kevin Holland. Man, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Here we are. Well, thank you guys for doing this. Yeah, we're just gonna hang out here for an hour or so and talk a little bit and kind of talk about how three of us got to be here in this room together in 2022. I mean,
well, I'm glad that you're here. This has been a real pleasure to have you visit.
oh, it's been so much fun, and I was looking in the back in old text messages on the car on the drive over here, and it was 2017 the last time that I was physically here. So
okay.
Before the book came out, and a lot's changed. I think it was maybe one or two SHOT shows since then that we got to say hello.
Probably
Those are so busy.
Yeah. We didn't go 2020. No, we did go 2020.
That was the last time. So that's the last time I think I saw you.
Yeah, I believe so.
But that's always crazy busy. You know, those are like a reunion. But but for you have to actually be in the booth and do the thing. And
there's a lot of work for us.
A lot of work, yeah, crazy. But let's start with how this all came about. So from you to you, and then to me, and how we all got here. But the knife making bug, did that start early on, or how did that?
Yeah, I started making knives when I was in high school. And made them as shop projects in school. And can't do that so much anymore, but back then you could. And after I got out of school and went to college, I really enjoyed doing it. And I was shooting like black powder weapons and wanted authentic equipment to go along with it, and just continued researching and gathering equipment and making my own knives and tomahawks and powder horns and shooting pouches, and traveling to these reenactments, and people would comment on it. You know, they at these reenactments, they used to have these things called blanket shoots, where your fee to enter, an entry fee, was a prize, and you put on a blanket, and then everybody shot, and whoever won got to pick what they wanted first, and whoever came in last got to, get the can of green beans or something. Because there was no regulations on what you had to put as a blanket prize. So there's a lot of different things, and so I would make like a patch knife or something, put on the blanket, and got to where it would get picked up first, and then people would come and say, hey, how much would you charge to make me one of those? And so that's kind of how my knife making career started, was making stuff for myself, and then realizing that other people were interested. And then it kind of grew from there, and I learned about the true custom knife industry, and went full-time as a knife maker in 1988, and have not done anything for income since, other than making knives or now with the manufacturing facility.
Okay. So in high school, was the shop class teacher, was he a knife maker? Did he know something about it, or did you just do that in?
Well, he didn't know a whole lot about making knives, but he was a craftsman, and he taught industrial arts. And so, I learned, we did pottery and leather work and a little bit of metal work. And then I took it beyond that, which he gained interest in. And we became good friends after I got out of high school. Okay. Even before, I would take my bow to school with me, and then we would go hunting after school with my teacher. And
that doesn't happen much anymore, I'm thinking.
it circled around enough to now his son works here at Winkler Knives. He's one of our handlers, one of our craftsmen.
What?
Yeah, so it's...
That is wild.
Yeah.
No way. Do you still have that first knife that you made by any chance? What it was? Do you remember?
My brother has the first knife that I made, and I've got some of the early ones. Yeah. Actually, it was a patch knife, a double-edged patch knife, and I gave it to my brother, and I imagine he still has it. I haven't asked to see it in a while, but so that one is still there.
You better check. Make sure you didn't go up on eBay or one of these forums. Yeah. What did you make it out of? That first one.
I found there was a catalog that sold a lot of peculiar stuff, kind of Army surplus stuff and all. I found this blank for a old sword blade that had never been ground. It had the fuller in it, but it still had squared edges, and it was, it didn't have a point or any edge where some factory, I imagine, had made this sword. And when I saw it, I thought, well, gee, there's a start. That's probably some kind of steel you can make a knife out of. And so my actual, I used that in shop class and filed it down. We didn't have the grinders then, so it was all done by hand.
Okay.
And shaped it to a dagger shape, put a bone handle on it, made a patch knife for a shooting pouch that I made in another segment of the class.
Jeez. Well, that's all. And then you grew up not too far from here.
Yeah, about 30 miles, I guess.
Okay, 30 miles away. And did you grow up hunting, fishing?
I did.
All of that right here?
Hunting, fishing.
And were you drawn towards knives and weapons at an early age?
Yeah, well, I was always old timers, and we had no custom stuff, but Uncle Henry's and old timers. Yeah, that's what I used. So, yeah.
And were you shooting and hunting at the set?
Yeah. I mean, I would. My uncle was who I hunted with, and it'd just be with 30-30 lever action. That's what I killed my first deer with,
nice.
And then. I forget, somehow I got a hold of an old Spanish muzzle loader from somewhere at a pawn shop or something when I was in high school, and I started shooting the muzzle loader. So that's how I grew up.
I think by 30-30 has probably been, it'd be a debate whether a 30-30 or a 30-06 has been used to take more deer in the United States.
Around here, I bet.
Around here, 30-30, you think?
Yeah. The 30-30 was great because I used one of those too really early when I would be hunting, because we have such thick brush and like a double canopy with a rhododendrons in the hardwoods, and it's just maneuverable and handles well in most of our environments around here.
Yeah, I saw my dad's old pre-64 30-30 that he got in a pawn shop in, I think when he was like 11 or something like that, and you could just do that back then in California of all places. Yeah. And just walked out with a lever action 30-30 and still have it to this day, and used it like 2 years ago on a hunt. So that was pretty cool. Something about that rifle.
Yeah.
I want to go and track another one down just so I don't mess this one up. Used it a couple times, put it in the safe, and then grab another one to, keep in the truck or something like that. There's just something about a lever action 30-30 that's pretty cool. But especially the pre-64s, obviously,
Yeah.
Got to get those. But oh man, did you have military history in your family?
Well, so my grandfather was in the Spanish-American War. He was pretty old.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I had uncles that were in the Army and the Air Force. Yeah, so not really like close, military.
More distant, and just heard like have an uncle that I think was in.
I think he was in that or that. Yeah. So but they did serve. Yeah. So my dad was the youngest of 4 brothers, and so they didn't. During Vietnam.
Okay.
And so the others were serving, and so they didn't take him because of the whole Saving Private Ryan kind of thing. All the brothers got killed. So, yeah.
Got it. And then what did you find out about SEALs?
So I think I saw like a parade magazine back in the day. I don't know if you remember what that was.
It was in the newspaper.
On Sunday mornings, and so on the front of the cover, it had these guys all covered in mud, and and I'd always grew up. I wanted John Wayne and watched the Green Berets and all that. I wanted to be a Green Beret and read First Blood, of course, and that was Tennessee. Is where it actually happened in the book, or Kentucky or something, and he had a 30-30, and so it was just, that's what I grew up with, and so his background was Green Beret, so that's what I wanted to be.
Yep.
And so ended up, that was my plan, kind of growing up, and then I saw that picture of those guys, they're all like, it's a whole buds class, and they're all covered in mud, and I was just like, holy smokes. So I read that article, and that's the first introduction to them.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you saw that in your high school, and then?
I was in probably like early high school, probably 85, 86.
Okay.
Yeah. So
early on. I remember Gung Ho magazine and, of course, Soldier of Fortune. I'm trying to think the other SEAL influences other than, mentions in a couple books here and there. The Frogman movie, of course, black and white from the 50s.
Well, Brotherhood of the Rose.
Brotherhood of the Rose.
I read that. I was like,
ooh. Talks about the pyramid and who's at the
pyramid.
top of the
Who's
pyramid.
the top
You
of the
remember?
pyramid?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Once again, David Morrell, who wrote First Blood, created Rambo back in 1972, and has never been out of print since. Actually had its 50th anniversary this last May.
Okay.
From its date of publication. And then, of course, Stallone in '83 with the movie, and brings a whole new audience to the books, and introduces the blade to everybody. And
we. So when you read that book, you don't. There's still, back then there was nothing about. We had encyclopedias. And so
I remember going to the encyclopedias and looking all
UDT,
that stuff up.
and it was UDT, and you look it up, and it's just like tales about them, and it's just like okay, And then, so once I started talking to a recruiter, I was spoke to a Marine recruiter.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, I'll talk to them all, And the Army recruiter really wasn't, he's just like, here's a video, watch this video, Rangers or whatever, And I really wasn't too impressed, with him. I was like, so I go to the Marine guy, and he's like, what are you thinking? I said, what's recon or whatever? He goes, well, it's this, and he told me about it, and I was like, well, all right, well, and I said, well, I was looking maybe going in the Navy and being a SEAL, and he goes, we'll never make that. He goes, but I can have you in recon in 2 weeks once you get in the, and I'm like, so I can.
What hit you is you'll never make that.
Well, it isn't. Not only that I can't make it. It was the point of I can get you in recon in 2 weeks once you get. And I'm like, well, I don't want to be in that outfit if I can get in it in 2 weeks. There you go. So that's how that went. And I was like, all right, And so I went into the Navy guy, and he's just like, yeah, he goes, you got great ASVAB scores. What about a nuke? Well, you want to be a nuke, something like that? And I'm like, what's that? And he goes, well, it's a submarine. And I'm like, I said, no, I want to be a SEAL. And he had no idea. He goes, well, come back tomorrow, and we'll do I'll do some research on it. So I come back, and he goes, okay, here's what you got to do. He goes, you go cut you a log about this big around, and you carry that thing wherever you go. When you get home in the evenings from school, you go run with this log and this, that, and the other thing. I'm like, all right.
So you did?
Oh, yeah, I still got it. Daniel's got it.
I've got it.
What?
It's here, yeah.
Well, it's a sourwood.
It's going in our museum that we're going to open up.
And so, but yeah, it's just like, I don't know, probably 6 foot, it probably weighed, 100 pounds or something back
pretty
then.
Heavy.
It's pretty, now it's
lighter
still
now,
heavy,
I'm sure.
So I'd go up and run with this thing up and down my road, and, a neighbor would come by with a tractor and a front end loader and goes, hey, throw that thing in the front of this hanger. I'm like, no, I'm training. And I know I didn't say that because nobody knew what that was. I said, I'm in the Marines, whatever, and so they just keep trucking. But that's my introduction to it. So.
No way. And then boot camp and buds and
some photographers, mate, because they're like, hey, you got to have school when you quit SEAL training that you can, fall back on.
Okay.
I said, what's the shortest one you got?
That was smart. I didn't do that. I was like, intelligence specialist. That sounds like me. I'm going to do that. So I did that in that 16
That's
weeks.
6 months.
Yeah, it was a long time at Dam Neck, and then you had to wait till you. I had to mop a lot of floors, waiting for class up, and then afterward, wait for buds. And so that was not the best move, but looking back at it, was it probably was the right thing for me to do. It was kind of cool. But I think I could have passed it. I could have just taken the test, the final day test, the day that I showed up, just because of all the reading that I'd done over the years. And I could have picked out the silhouettes of all the different, and we were still studying Cold War stuff because it was 1996 when I was at Intel school at Dam Neck, and it was all Cold War stuff still. So reading all the Tom Clancy novels really did prepare me for that, and I think I could have just tested right out of it.
Oh, wow.
But anyway,
so that's at Dam Neck. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, Navy and Marine Corps Intelligence Training Center. I have no idea if it's still there or not, but it was Navy and Marine Corps Intel School.
Gotcha.
A school anyway. You know,
gotcha.
And then off to buds. But
Were you on the die fair program?
yeah.
Oh,
yeah. They had that for yours?
Yeah,
okay.
That's what I was on.
Yeah, my recruiter didn't know about it either. I went in there armed because it was in the back of one book, and I forget the name of the book right now, but in the back of one of these, maybe it was the Commandos, or there was a few books that had come out in the 90s, and one of them talked about the dive farer program in the end, and I was like, okay, that's what I want to do. It gives me the opportunity to try out at boot camp, and that's all I wanted. I just want to be guaranteed the opportunity to try out.
Chance.
Exactly. And so I signed up for that 6 years. Now looking back, at least when I went through boot camp, everybody got to try out if you wanted to.
Yep. Yeah, they said, hey, who wants to do it? And
Yeah.
Man, so I signed up for 2 extra years if you make it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, they kind of got you with that
Gotcha.
one, but it sounded cool. That
Sounded
fair
good.
program, at the time.
I'm in.
Yeah, exactly. Oh well.
Yeah.
Oh man. But then you make it through buds, and you're getting issued the Mark I Motto Navy dive knife.
Oh, yeah.
There.
Yeah.
Sharpening
that
it.
thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, I get issued that thing. And
You still have it?
No, we didn't keep them.
Oh.
No, they didn't give them to us.
Oh, I better not say that I kept mine. Then.
Oh,
They'll come
no.
after me.
I'd have thought about it.
Anyway, exactly.
Man, I should have.
Yeah, I kept mine.
That's
pretty good at
awesome.
sharpening that thing. I remember the steel's pretty soft on those.
Yeah. Well, it had to be because you had to sharpen it every swim, it seemed like.
Yep,
You know.
every
So you had to shave. I don't know how they had any hair on their arms left. After every, they test it, and if it didn't shave, it was not a good day.
No, we had the guy with the rock. If it didn't shave, he had the rock, and then he took your knife and he smashed into the rock and just
grind the edge of it.
Yeah, and so then you had to do some
really
serious work on it.
Oh yeah, because you could touch it up, if they didn't do that to it. But otherwise, you was up for hours.
Yeah, I got pretty good at sharpening. Sharpening.
That's a good skill to have. A lot of people don't have that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was good with the stone. I remember I got the different stones, the 3 different kind of stones, I think, and so kind of learned about that. Haven't really done it as much since, but I got really good at it in buds.
Yeah.
And then you get to first SEAL team. And do you remember your first knife that you got issued?
The buck monster.
Oh, really? Like the one with the grappling hook thing on it?
Oh yeah.
Man, I gotta find one of those.
That's what they issued us. We were like,
do you remember that, Daniel? Did you ever seen that thing?
It's the buck master.
Oh yeah. Okay.
We call it the buck monster. So, but it looked like Rambo's knife.
It
so
did.
you were like, wow.
Oh.
But then you're like, I don't know. It's it was kind of, I don't know who thought that we'd throw that on a building and hook the little thing and climb with a knife up there.
Hey, in the 80s when they developed that thing, that was it. You'd see. I remember seeing that in the Army Navy surplus store that I loved going to with my dad as a kid. And it was just there was like some camo netting in there and ammo cans, and that sort of a thing. But they had a little knife section. I remember that being back there behind the counter on the wall, and it was just like, oh man. And it was probably like $300, which might have well been $3 million back then.
I think it made, Buck Knives, it was a huge deal for them.
Yeah.
I imagine so.
Yeah. I've been out there and saw their little place where they got their, and it's a main thing in their little museum thing is the Buckmaster.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty sad. Did those unscrew?
Yep.
Those, they unscrewed, didn't they?
They unscrewed. Most everybody took them off.
Yeah.
Because it was like, all right,
what are you
going to do with that? So
interesting. Do you still have that one?
No.
Dang.
I know.
You were a roof follower. You turned your stuff back in.
I guess I did. It's one of those. They want your watch, they want your knife. I kept my Leatherman. I got my original Leatherman.
Okay, nice. So, yeah, the original Leatherman that was my dad's back in the 80s, like when they first, like early 80s.
Black. They're just, they're not stainless, they're black.
I got a stainless one.
I got a stainless one.
From my dad's. It was like maybe in the late 70s. I forget when Leatherman came on the scene. I forget, but.
I don't remember either, but I had to have one too.
Yeah. Yep.
Oh yeah, it's handy.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think when I got there, we had the. I think it was I want to say it was a Glock knife. Is that?
Yep.
Yeah.
We got a Glock knife.
Okay.
As well.
Now
that was later.
That was later. So I got that in '97.
I think we got the Glock once I got to Dev Group. I think that's when we got the Glocks.
Got it.
Got rid of the Buck Monster.
And then we had the SOG also, the big one and the small one. I think they were getting rid of the big one and they were getting the small one in. But there was a few knives that we had, during that time, late '90s time frame that were actual issued. I remember the first one was the Glock knife, and then there was that the SOG, the big one, and then that small one, the Seal Pup. Yeah,
I've
the
seen
Seal
that.
Pup. Yeah, which not bad.
No.
Yeah, not bad.
No, they're not bad. It's a little bit surprising to me that these issue knives to these tier 1 teams they're buying imported.
Yeah.
That's not made in the U.S. I was a little.
Yeah, it's
a
weird.
little shocking to understand. I guess the costing factor has to be taken into consideration when they're outfitting that many people, but it just that's a little bit shocking that's what you were issued. So I mean, they're fine knives, I'm sure, and I've owned buck knives myself before, but I would have.
Thought it would.
I would always thought it would have been a little different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we thought that too when we showed up. We thought we were going to get all sorts of crazy, awesome gear and pagers, and they were going to go off in at the middle of the night, and we'd go save the world and come back in time for beers the next day. And that was not how it was in the late '90s. Yeah. But going back before then, so you go first SEAL team. And it was
SEAL Team 8.
SEAL Team 8, and 2 deployments there?
Yeah, well, no, really. I just did we did a MARG deployment in the Desert Storm.
Okay.
And then we went into that and stayed an extra couple months.
And what did you guys end up doing there?
So we're northern Iraq. We went in and did reconnaissance and sniper missions out of helicopters.
Oh, nice.
Because the Apaches had Kiowas in front of them to find targets, and they had no guns on them back in those days. They were just slick. And so they're getting shot at every night as they go out. So they came to our SEAL platoon and asked if a couple of us would ride with them, put lasers on and wear nods. And so we had lasers like this big and use the pilot's night vision, because nobody had night vision back in those days. We had this big Vietnam looking thing. And so we'd ride around. If they shot at us, we'd shoot back. And,
no way.
Oh, yeah.
I did not know that for first Gulf War.
Absolutely.
Dang.
Yeah, we did a lot of that.
And you were off an amphib or a carrier?
Yeah, the Austin, I don't know if it's an LPD, whatever it is, USS Austin.
Right, big gray ship.
Big gray ship that we didn't want to be on.
Right.
We were under the Marines. A big pipe goes through our berthing. It was like 100 degrees in there every day, and so you just slept on the deck most of the time.
No kidding.
Yeah, anyway, so we went in, though, on 53s. I flew to northern Iraq with the Marines.
Oh, dang.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you got a little taste of it then?
Yeah, we got into it. And then, we did reconnaissance, and I got kind of hung out a couple times, where, you'd be out, and out of water. And you really didn't we didn't know what we were doing. It was the truth,
Yeah.
Nobody done it, and so we're in it. And it was just like, okay. And, we had 112s. The emergency radio.
Yeah.
That was our comms.
Oh, my gosh. It's a brick.
We had the one guy back there that had the radio. It wasn't a Prick 77,
but it was the next generation of that. But it wasn't much of a jump.
Yep. And then, hey, if you had to go to whatever, if a guy went out or 2 guys went out to check out something, you had that 112, and that was it.
Dang.
Yeah.
Because it was either that or probably like a Motorola. Maybe it was like
have those.
Didn't even have those yet.
No.
Dang.
No.
That's old school. And for people listening, people think SEALs were always just running off, doing secret missions all the time, but really we hadn't been in sustained combat operations since Vietnam.
Nope.
There were flashpoints for special operations of the military in general with Desert One, Grenada, Panama, later Mogadishu, but before that,
all just small, little things, and no extended combat. Nobody done it for years. We had Vietnam guys that were our instructors.
Yeah.
That's how when I came through, and so that was the last time anybody really seen any extended combat. Was Vietnam.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And then until September 11th, really, and then
pretty much.
We got to get after it. But so you do one deployment, you come back, and then screen for development group.
Come back, go to sniper school.
Okay.
Because they're like, hey, you're doing sniper missions. We need to send you to sniper school.
Nice.
Go to Atterbury, go to sniper school, and then
you're honor graduate. And you wouldn't say it, so I figured I would.
And then I got to go back this spring and be an instructor. So I was an instructor, and then I headed over to Dev Group after that.
And this is where you meet Daniel. And,
I show up.
Yeah.
And I'm in red, and so they my Master Chief's Danny Chalker, and he's like, hey, you're the supply guy, and I'm like, okay, and he goes, and we need you to find us a breaching axe, because we're the red men, and we've got crossed hatchets on our on our flag or patch for Red Squadron, and an Indian, so we need an axe. And so I'm like,
makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I search, and there's none of that.
Because there's no internet. You can't just put in.
No, you go, the hardware store, hey, can I get somebody to make one of these things? Or how's this going to work, And It's 1992. Last of the Mohicans comes out.
Yep.
And I'm watching Magua kill the British soldier as he's walking down. I'm like, there's what we need.
There we go.
And so I wait till the end of the movie and I watch the credits and I see where Daniel Winkler is the guy, and he's from Blowing Rock, North Carolina. And I'm like, well, shoot, I'm from Wilkes County right here at, a hometown next door.
Yeah.
So I have to wait to come home on a weekend or leave or something. I go get a phone book for Watauga, look it up, and he's not in Watauga. He's in actually Caldwell, right below the county line. And I was like, well, maybe he's in Caldwell, because I saw where it says he's Globe or something, and so I pulled up a Caldwell County, found him in the phone book, called him up, and said, hey, is this Daniel Winkler, the knife maker? And he said, yeah, and I said, I'd kind of like to talk to you about making me an axe. And that's how it started.
Is this one right here?
That's it.
This one right here.
Kind of drew up a little picture on something, and I mailed it to him, and he refined it. He goes, well, I got this axe that has already kind of a full tang for a camp axe, and he refined it, and that's what it come out of.
This is a special axe right here, and we
Number
talked
one.
about it last night, and this thing's got something about it.
Well, after he called and I got off the phone, I was talking to Karen. She said, yeah, who's that? You get an order? I said, yeah, I think it's got, said he was a Navy SEAL.
What's that? Did you know what Navy SEALs were at the time?
Well, I had a little bit of an idea about it.
Yeah.
I'd heard about them, but I've been spending my time in my career making historic period design stuff,
Right.
and so you called at the right time, because I had been making a little replica of a Fort Meigs hatchet. It's real small, easy to carry. It was an authentic frontiersman style, but had a really, really thin handle, and the handle went through the eye like a traditional hatchet.
Okay.
So, if you chopped anything bigger than a pencil, the handle would break.
Okay.
And so I thought, well, I got to make that to where it'll hold up, because I like the size. And so I came up with this way to do a full tang with it, and then double pin in the handle. And so I thought, well, yeah, that's kind of what you were talking about, because you need it for breaching, and then you needed some combat capabilities. I thought, let's go that and see how it works. So it worked out pretty well.
That's the same handle he put on it 30 years ago.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
Every single nick here, scratch here tells a story. And, if this thing could talk, incredible. But before you made that call, obviously Last of the Mohicans gets made. How did they reach out to you or find you for that film? Did they talk to a bunch of different knife makers, kind of like do interviews, or did they just see something of yours somewhere? How did that come about?
It's just one of those life stories that happens. I was traveling to the Black Powder Rendezvous, and they had the National Muzzleloading Rifle Association had their Southeastern Rendezvous that year in Boone.
Okay.
And so that's right where I live. And so, of course, I was going to go to that one. I mean, it's in my backyard. They have to drive 10 hours to get to one. And so while we were there, there was a casting tent set up, and I learned they were doing a remake of this movie, Last of the Mohicans. And I thought, well, that's pretty good, because they were looking at people and their outfits, and they were basically there to look for extras, background people to do it. And so Karen and I happened to have a craft show that was being held at the Biltmore Estate, like the next weekend or something after that. So we thought, well, we've got a case full of knives in a time period that this movie's going to be on. I wonder if they'd be interested.
No way.
So we went to Asheville and found where the production offices were, and went to them and told them what we were doing. And they said, well, let's get you in touch with the props master. So they called him, and he said, yeah, give them our address, because the props department was set up in an old it's like a Lance Cracker warehouse or something. It was, they had a lot of space, but it was something that wasn't being used. So they gave us the address. He said, this guy's name, the props master, was Ron Downing. He was a British fellow. And And he said, I'm glad you're here because I've got a meeting with Director Michael Mann this evening, and I'm supposed to show him some new knives and hatchets that I had found. I hadn't found anything. He said, could you be here for a meeting this evening?
He was in the same boat I was, couldn't find nothing nowhere.
Yeah. And so I said, yeah, we can do that. So we showed up, we showed him our stuff, and so from the beginning, we worked with the props master and Director Michael Mann, and he would give us, he said, yeah, I like this, and I like this blade and all, and then he would show me pictures of some items that were in museums. Like there was a knife, I think, that he'd taken a picture of that was at one, Fort Niagara maybe. That ended up being the blade shape for Hawkeye's knife. And then they actually sent me an original tomahawk to copy from Magua that was from another museum at another fort, and it was much smaller, but they wanted it enlarged, 24-inch handle for stage presence. So we went to production meetings every week for about 6 or 8 weeks prior to the start of filming, and the director and the props master would tell us what they wanted to see at the next meeting. So Karen and I'd go home and we'd make it. I'd make it, and she'd make sheaths for it and stuff. Most of the sheaths they ended up using though were made by sheath makers with quill work or something different. But so we'd take our stuff and show it to it, and they always liked them and they wanted it, and we worked out a deal where they would pay for them, but at reduced prices because these film people are always looking to save a buck. But anyway, we thought, we'll get some publicity out of this maybe, and so we did that, and so finally everything came together at the end when they were starting to film, and so we had to make 3 of each item that was approved for the principal characters. So I had to make 3 as identical as I could. And I'm hand forging these things, and I can't make a hammer blow land the same place every time, but got them pretty close. Yeah. And so they had to have one for the character to use on a daily basis. Yeah. They had one that they sent to special effects, and they made rubber models and lightweight for action sequences where they didn't want people getting hurt. And then they wanted a spare, because if Daniel Day-Lewis is hanging off the side of that canoe in Lake James and he dropped his knife to the bottom of the lake, well, they're out of business for a week until I can make another one. Wow. So they had a spare. And I tried to get them back, so I thought, never worked on a movie before, but this stuff might be valuable once people see it. And I couldn't get anything back, but they used them at the end of production as they gave them as gifts to people that were part of the production, the assistant director, the actor himself, or some producer. Wow. They would give them gifts, and that's the kind of thing they did. So I don't know where they are now, but I never got them back. Interesting. But it worked out pretty well because as soon as that movie came out, it was a big boost to a custom knife maker's career, and Karen and I really benefited from our association with that, and it worked out good. And then the best part about that was hooking up with Kevin. Seriously? Because that actually was the turning point in where we've ended up. And as far as the custom knife industry and all that was, we were very successful with that. We had a good customer base, and we would sell out at the shows that we went to, and had like a 2-year waiting list on custom products. And so we were doing okay, but there's just so much 2 individuals can do. Right. But it gave us the opportunity now to expand and build on it and develop our quality and our performance, and so it's been great. So that start with the Mohicans was a pretty big step for us.
Well, I mean, it's such an iconic film, and then you have Blade Magazine that you're right there, featured front and center. Yeah. And I mean, everybody loves that movie. I mean, it's just people remember where they were when they saw it, and you got to do that work for it, which is incredible. And were you on set for that for a lot of it?
Yeah, we got to go on location for a good bit of the
filming. It was right around here somewhere.
They filmed most of it within an hour drive of here. I think the furthest drive I did was to Lake James where the fort scene was. But it was all filmed in this area, and some just not far from here at all, up on the Blue Ridge Parkway at Linville Falls, where that's the outside shots of the big waterfall that they had was at Linville Falls, not far from where we're sitting, and then the the inside cave scene where they go inside the cave and the water fall out, that was actually a set inside of a Nabisco cookie warehouse in Asheville.
No
and they
kidding.
built this massive tank and this big rock waterfall, and they had these massive pumps pumping water over it.
Yeah.
I mean, it looked great.
Yeah.
And they would have divers in the catch tank, because if one of these actors slipped and fell down, they had to have somebody down there to save them, because there was, I don't know how many thousands of gallons of water were pumping over this thing. But it was pretty interesting watching how these movies came together.
Yeah.
Now, when he jumped through the waterfall, was there a big like pool?
There's
he
a pool
jumped
under,
into?
yeah.
And they were in the divers in that.
There are divers in that just to make sure that nobody got hurt when they did it. And it was an interesting thing to see how it worked.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah,
We need
and
if somebody came forward and with those knives.
Yeah. Maybe somebody will hear this and reach out.
Yeah.
They're out there somewhere.
love to have them to display for everybody to see. But,
That's right, because pretty soon you're about to have your museum open down here,
Right,
a little in the fall maybe, depending on
That's
construction.
what we're
that.
hoping for. Yeah, we're looking
We'll
for
be able
that.
to come here and check out all the knives and see a little bit of the museum and the history and get a T-shirt or a mug and
Right.
that sort of a thing. So that'll be great when that's done. That'll be really cool.
It will. We're looking forward to it. It would be great for us to have a place where we can invite customers to
Right.
see, because here, our manufacturing facility, there are regulations with insurance and OSHA regulations,
and you gotta
and just
make knives.
doing regular shop tours, we would have to, set up like they do, not on this scale, but like Boeing, where they build the big airplanes in Seattle, and they have the walkways that people walk on, and so they can observe them. We don't really have the opportunity to set up something like that.
Right.
But if we can set up a destination for people to come to, which we're working on, that they not only get to see our progression throughout history from the hand forged and Last of the Mohicans and the early models of the hatchets that we make to what we're doing now, and then have the opportunity, if they're interested, to purchase something or a hat or a T-shirt or even a knife or a hatchet there, that it'll be a good thing for customer relations and to give back a little bit.
Oh yeah, it'll be good to have a storefront where people can go, because there's so much interest in everything that you do.
Right.
So you got this. You brought it back to your squadron, and you showed it to Denny Chalker.
Oh yeah.
And he was my Master Chief at Bud's, which was fantastic. But what did he say when he saw this thing?
I loved it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody holds the things like, oh, this thing is great.
I know, I can't let go of it.
It's perfect, And he goes, that's exactly what we're looking for. And I'm like, good. And he goes, well, how much is it? And I gave him the price, and he's like, what? And it wasn't a bad price, for what you got.
Especially for that command. I guess at the time, even then.
Yeah, it was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And they're kind of cheap, So, but they weren't willing to pay the the price, which was a couple, $300 or And so it was like, all right, well, this is going in my kit.
Nice, yeah. And then you carry it the rest of the time that you were at that command?
I dove with that thing, and I had it,
I love that you dove with this.
all the time.
And then just came back, got out of the water.
Spray it off and just oil it
Oil.
down. That was it. So that's the walnut handle, and because I have had people go, well, I don't know if that walnut will hold up.
Right.
Like people.
30 years.
I'm like, well, 30 years. I don't know how much longer I need it.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man, that's amazing. And then so you're carrying it during the rest of your time there, which is mostly training, because it's
we did
November 11th,
uphold democracy. We did the Haiti thing,
Okay.
and went in and did the PSD for General Shelton and Joint Chiefs of Staff, and it was mainly training, at Dev Group from the time I was there, and then I ended up separating, getting out of the Navy.
Why'd you decide to get out?
We weren't doing what we were supposed to be. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I went
gotcha.
into, hey, we're going to be going and doing what you said, pagers, and you roll and you go somewhere and you do what you do, as a SEAL, and we were just, it was fun. We were skydiving, and we were ready, to go do whatever it was that we were tasked to do. We did a 35,000 foot world record jump, combat equipment, that's what we were doing. And then but really we weren't going to war. And so I ended up like, okay, I got out, and became a wildlife officer in North Carolina.
You know that's what you're going to do when you got out?
No, I actually got out. My dad had a business and kind of went into business with him. He would had a hosiery mill, and they would dye and bleach socks for like Kmart and Walmart and stuff like that. So I found out pretty quick that's not what I'm made to do, and so I started looking around, and I found being a wildlife officer, and I read an article or something on a plane, and back when I was a SEAL, and I said, well, that looks pretty neat, you know, and then so fast forward a year or so after I'd got out, I applied and got picked up to be a wildlife officer
right around here
in North Carolina.
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting because one of the North Carolina wildlife officers from this area was here 2 or 3 weeks ago, and he had been one of the guys that had started with and training you. Is one of the guys you went to that worked with you, one of the older officers.
Randy Thomas or somebody?
Could be. I can't remember. But yeah, he said no. I worked with Kevin. You know, when he became an officer, I was one of the guys that helped him and worked him through. And I guess you had to have somebody to show you around and.
Well, we had instructors. I mean, you know, we went through.
So like an academy type thing.
Yeah, it's an academy. It's like 16, 20 weeks or something.
But he had worked with you back while you were a wildlife officer.
No way. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was a great job.
Yeah.
Loved it. Because I mean, back then you could be a game warden.
And you were by yourself out there, right?
You were by yourself a whole lot, but you'd have partners sometimes. You work night deer hunting. You know, you're just looking for turkey bait. I mean, it was just a great job for an ex-SEAL. I mean, you're doing it, and you're running down armed people and. I loved it.
Yeah, were you carrying this?
Well, not on my kit. They wouldn't let you carry it, But I had it in the door of my car.
Okay.
So I always had it with me. It was just, in the door of my car, and so, you didn't get to use it much as a wildlife officer, but it was used for more, if you needed to cut something down or whatever, build a blind for laying on bear bait.
Yeah.
So we would wait at bear bait, on people to come in. Because I trained up near Asheville. That's where I went through training in Henderson County, North Carolina. And so we would get dropped out, and you'd stay all night on watching bear bait for the guys to come in to release dogs on the bear bait. I'd use it for building blinds or whatever, back in those days.
No way. So when you emerged from the tree line or wherever you were hiding, do you have like a ghillie suit on, or you just kind of make?
Yeah, we would have leafy suits. We would have, and we'd have a little night vision. Back at they had them. And so, we would. It was serious business. I mean, and they're still. I mean, there's got they're clamped down on them doing a whole lot of stuff nowadays. They want to be more park ranger-ish, but they're still, they're great guys, and they get to do some cool stuff.
Was there ever a typical response when you'd come out? Because you don't know what they're going to do. You're coming up on armed people. They're doing something illegal. Maybe you're by yourself. Maybe you're with a partner. Well, but what's that like?
Sometimes it was, I mean, we in Wilkes County, right down the mountain here, a guy was in my class, came up on a guy that was on turkey bait, and the guy pulled the shotgun up to kill him, and he had to kill the guy. So, I mean, it was you never knew. Like you working night deer hunting, and guy'd be spotlighting, and you come up on them with your lights out and behind them, and then when you flick the blue lights on, I had guys jump out with AK-47s and take off running. Dang. So I'd chase them down.
Because you're you. Yeah.
But it's not the best.
When someone's coming after you with the hawk, like, whoa, this is serious.
It'd make me run faster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's wild. Were you carrying blade wise back then?
Well, you could just carry a pocket knife. You couldn't carry a fixed blade on your, it was pretty, I don't know. They had you carry what they wanted you to carry. It was, we carry pocket knives.
And so pistol, what did you carry for a pistol?
We had a Beretta 40 cal.
Really?
Yeah, that's what we carried.
No kidding.
Yep. I actually have not mine, but I have one from that era that a buddy of mine, they let them buy them. They didn't let me buy mine when I left. But a friend of mine had bought Dennis Thomas's up here in Watauga County. He had bought his, and he gave it to me. So I have one. They're a good shooting gun. I mean, I like them.
Did you have like a Remington 870 or Master 500?
Remington 870 in the old trunk, and we'd qualify with it. And
there you go.
So, but yeah, it was a great job.
Yeah. And then you did that up until September 11th?
Yeah, I was a wildlife officer when I went to selection. So, so September 11th happens.
Where are you? Where were you on September 11th?
So I was driving to Indiana with my family. My wife was from Indiana at the time, and going through the Cumberland Gap. in Tennessee, Kentucky, right there. And it came on NPR because we were listening to the news or something, and it said, hey, a plane has hit, one of the towers, and it described it. And it described a gaping hole of black smoke, and I thought maybe they're talking about like a Cessna or something, somebody else flew it in, but I'm like, so I look over at my wife and I said, a terrorist just flew a plane into that. And she's like, no, and then the second one hit, and it was like, she goes, you're not going back in, first thing, and I'm like, and so her dad had an aneurysm, and so we were going to visit him in the hospital, but I had to get back because I was teaching a survival course. I teach SEALs and I teach civilians and whatever in my off time from being a game warden. They bring them in and teach them how to build shelters and fire and everything. Because I went to Tom Brown's back.
Did you go to Tom Brown in the teams?
Oh yeah,
nice.
Oh, yeah, and so nobody really wanted to do it but me. So
I wanted to do that when I was a kid. I had all the books growing up.
Yeah, I went to them. Yeah, so I'd go to Tom Brown's courses and I'd come back and I'd teach them what we did, and that was better because they ain't having to sleep in that debris hut.
Debris hut. I remember the debris hut. Yeah.
So anyway, I was teaching that, in my spare time, making extra money doing that. Well, I had a course going on with like a lot of the editors from all the newspapers across North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so they were all there, and so I couldn't just. So I was having to teach this course, but all I'm thinking about doing is getting back.
Yeah.
Get back in the military. So
what did you do? Did you call the Navy?
I did. Yeah, I called a buddy of mine. It was he was in the Battle of the Black Sea, Black Hawk Down. He and it just happened to be him is who I called because we're buddies, and he'd come down and went to one of my survival courses not too long ago.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's like, okay, yeah, I'll bring it up to the Master Chief, and so he went and talked to the Master Chief and
at your former command
at Dev, Dev Group, and he said, well, yeah, he goes, but he'll need to go back, and this is, I guess, by the book, you got to go back to a white side team, regular team, and then do a couple deployments, and then you can come back here. And so I was like, I was good with it.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, well, at least he's saying I can come back.
Yeah.
But my buddy's like, man, he goes, I'd go try out for CAG, and I'm like, what's that? And he, it's the Army unit, our counterpart down at Fort Bragg, and because he was with them in Black Hawk Down. And he goes, no, that's an incredible unit. He goes, and they're there already. And I'm like,
roger that.
All right, so how do you do that? And he goes, that's like a little compass course you got to go through. And he goes, you're good at that kind of stuff. He goes, you'll be fine. And I'm like, a compass course to get into this outfit? And he's like, oh yeah. He goes, that's what they told me. So I said, well, how do I? He goes, well, he found the recruiter's number, and I called the recruiter down there, and that's kind of how it went.
No kidding. And
well, he goes, if you don't make it, you just come back here.
Nice. And so you just went right to selection?
Yeah. It was
boot camp or anything?
No. I was a game warden, so I basically Kyle Lamb was sitting in the office when I called down there.
No way.
With the recruiter. Kyle's sitting there, and the guy's like, he goes, well, what unit are you in? And I'm like, well, I'm not in a unit. I'm a game warden here in North Carolina, and he's like, well, so you got to be in the military. So I'm like, okay. So I hung up and I drove to town, and there's a National Guard unit in my hometown,
Yeah.
And they're an engineering battalion or whatever. And I think it's the next day.
Yeah.
And I'm in uniform. I'm a game warden, and I stopped by there, and I'm like, hey, I said, I'd like to join up. And they're like, really? And I'm like, yeah, do my part, and they're like, okay. We've got this new thing. It's you can sign up for a year and blah blah blah. And I said, sign me up. So they signed me up. I did all the paperwork, whatever. And I had to go. I had to take the ASVAB again because it'd been over 3 years. And so they're like, we'll schedule you for a ASVAB test and down in Charlotte, I think I had to go to, or Salisbury. And so I come back home, call the guy back. I'm like, I'm in the military now. He's like, really? And I'm like, he goes, I said, yep, I just joined the National Guard for a year. And he's like, okay. And Kyle's there too. And so he hangs up the phone. He tells Kyle, he goes, that guy called back. Because he had told Kyle, he goes, do you know Kevin Holland? And Kyle's like, because it was so small back then. We would go down to Fort Bragg and do a Capex exercise where we're sitting in our boat or hard boat, and you hook a tower and climb. And so we had interaction with those guys, you know. And he's like, I don't really know him. I've heard his name, you know, because of my buddy that worked with him in Black Hawk Down. And the guy goes, hey, that guy called back, and now he's in the military. He's in the National Guard. And they're laughing. They're like, oh. And Kyle's telling me this story a couple times, you know, and he goes, all right. He goes, because he put me on hold, and he's telling Kyle this. You know. So now he gets back on there, and he goes, well, you're going to have to come down here and do a PT test, you know, let's just see what you got. You know? So I'm like, all right, when do I come down there? You know, and he goes, what do you need? Told me what I needed, shoes, shorts, T-shirt, whatever. So I'd drive down there, a little Ford Ranger pickup to Fort Bragg, and meet the guy, you know, Riley Road. There's a place where there was a shooting that had happened in the 90s. I don't know, back probably like 96 or something, where a guy had shot a bunch of people in this parade ground. Yeah, and that's where I did my PT test. And so anyway, so do the push-ups, sit-ups, run, did really good. And he's like, well, all right, well, all right, fill this out, you know. So I fill out this big, long thing, you know, as an application, basically, you know, to get there. And then he goes, we'll need a resume. And I don't have a resume, you know. And so I get home, and I'm like, man, I think I got a typewriter and typed out a resume on a old school typewriter. Yep.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and fill this thing out. And just I don't know how to write a resume. I just, you know, listed stuff, you know, and whatever. And I wasn't but an E5 when I got out of the Navy, so it wasn't like I had any, like, you know. But anyway, so I did that, sent my stuff in. They went through it, and they called me back probably a couple weeks, and they're like, hey, we're going to send you to selection in March.
Wow.
And this is October. This is right after 9/11. Took a couple weeks, probably into November, October. That's when they told me. And so I did a few weekends with the National Guard, and then left in March for selection.
Yeah. Never look back.
No, yeah. I mean, like I said, I had to take leave from being a game warden. I was like, hey, I got to take leave, you know. And they're like, for what? I got some training with the National Guard, you know, and it's a month long. And so I was on leave from being a wildlife officer to go to selection. I had my, like, game warden boots, and I mean, you know, cotton BDUs.
No way.
Oh yeah. It was I wasn't high speed when I went to that, and everybody was like, you know, you ain't got, I don't know, no patches. I'm not a ranger. I'm nothing. You know,
what are you?
What are you, dude? Engineer patch.
Hey,
you know?
there you go.
Engineer patch on my arm.
That's amazing.
Oh yeah.
And then, so you make it through, and then you go to your squadron. Yeah. But what did the game wardens ever call back and be like?
Well, I come back from it, and I'm like, hey, I said, and I'd looked up in the old handbook, wildlife officer handbook, and it says, in a time of war, if you volunteer for military service, we'll hold your job.
No
way.
way.
Oh yeah.
Just put it on hold indefinitely till the conflict's over.
So I said, all right, well, I'm gonna go in the middle. I'm gonna go and you know, this is what I've done. I went to selection, I made it, and I'm gonna go to Fort Bragg, and I'm gonna go serve. I've signed up for 3 years. Had to sign up for 3 years, and then I'll come back. You know, and they're like, okay.
Because you're thinking it's probably gonna be over in 3 years.
Yeah, I was like, well, you know, I'm gonna do my time and then come back, because, you know, I enjoyed being a game warden, you know. So fast forward 3 years, and, you know, I've been combat doing all this stuff for all these years, and then I come back, and they're like, yeah, we filled your job, because I've made it back to my home county.
Okay.
And so they'd fill my job, which I didn't expect them to hold it, but it was just one of those, and they're like, yeah, we don't really know, you know, this, you know. And I said, well, it says it right there, you know, we're at war, right? You know, and so it took them a little bit, so I just had to re-enlist because I had to do something. But then, I don't know, 2 weeks after I re-enlisted, they're like, hey, we got your job, you know, and I'm like, well, too late now.
And it's been go ever since.
Go, yeah.
Man. So, and then during that time as a game warden, did you link back up with Daniel then, or did it after September 11th?
No, it was after 9/11.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
So you get to the unit, and.
Unit got on my team.
Yep. And you have this.
I had that. Well, we're doing a train up because we're getting ready to invade Iraq.
Yeah.
You know, I got done with OTC, which is the training course when you get there. And so I'm putting my kit on, and I've got my belt on, and I got my axe on it. And I always wore my axe, you know, and my team leader's like, he like sees it like just the handle sticking out of my sheath, you know, and this is, you know, I mean, he's like, is that a Winkler? From the handle, you know? So. And I'm like, well, yes, it is. And And so I said, you want to see it? And he goes, yeah, And so I break it out and give it to him. He's just like, oh my gosh, So he's like, man, do you think he'd make me one? And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. So once again, but now I got the internet,
And do you have a website at this point?
I think maybe.
I think I just looked him up somehow and called him.
Okay.
But I didn't have to go to the yellow pages this time, or the white pages. And I'm like, hey, do you remember me? I'm the SEAL you made the axe for. And he goes, yeah, I remember you. And so you hadn't made another one for another.
No, that had been years.
10 years.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
001 right here.
Yeah.
And then DW right there.
Yeah, that was how I did the touch marks at that time. So yeah, he said, yeah, I'm in a different unit now. And these guys want an axe like that. You want to make them? Well, yeah, I take custom orders. That's what I do for a living now. I said, yeah, I can make you one. He said, well, we might need more than one.
Yeah, there's about 4 or 5 guys that want them, and the whole team wanted them, of course, So we're just buying, the guys are buying them from Daniel. Yeah. Gets up to what, 16?
I think hand forged 16 that were all very similar to that one, because that was just the model that I had. He said, just they want one like mine, and so they're all a little different. So there's 16 hand forged ones out there that the guys that were on your team requested, and it kind of from there, from what I remember, there was one of the SEALs from your former unit.
They were attached to us in Baghdad.
Yeah.
So they put a team on our team, in our squadron. We were in Baghdad doing missions. This is probably 04. And the Red Squadron guys were like, what are these axes you guys are carrying? And I'm like, well, let me tell you a little story. Back when I was in Red Squadron, I told them the whole story about how I talked to Daniel, and they're like, man, can we contact him? I'm like, yeah. So the SEALs reached back out to Daniel.
So they contacted me and said, yeah, I can make you some of those. They said, well, we need like 40 of them. I thought, I can't make 40 of them.
Now they have budget.
Yeah, I said, this going to take a little research to come up with this. And so initially my thought was, well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the design together and work with another manufacturer that can do that many, because and Karen together, a 2-person shop, and she was doing the sheaths and the leather work, and I was doing the knives and all. It's not a mass production sort of operation. Yeah. And so I started looking at people and doing research on how could I make this and still keep it a high performance tool, but cut out some of the massive amount of time it takes to hand forge and hand grind and all that. Yeah. And so I found out there was water jet cutters that would cut out the blanks out of steel if I'd send them the steel. And then I talked to other people about doing the blade grinding and all and manufacturing. There were a lot of folks that were interested, but what they wouldn't commit to was, one, the timing, because I knew we had to get these things done in a certain amount of time because these guys were going off to use them. And the other thing, which was even more important with that, is I developed methods on manufacturing, on making high-performance axes and knives through my career. And there are specific ways I wanted it to be handled, with the blade grinds and the tapers and the heat treating and steel choices. And what I found out is other people want to do it their way. They're not going to do it your way. And so initially, Karen was all against this. She said, you can't go in a direction like this. We've built years building a reputation with custom knives for collectors, and it's going real well. And I said, I can't abandon this. I mean, these guys, I said, they're really out there working with them and use them. I said, and right now we were making pieces that if 1 out of 10 pieces that I made cut something, that would shock me because they just went on walls. Right. And it's not that they wouldn't perform, it's just that's the market area we ended up in. I
got interviewed by Karen on what these are going to be used for.
Oh yeah. Do you want to know what chores you were going to do with these?
What are you going to be using this for? Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty direct question, and if you know Karen, that's a direct look at you and ask it, and it was just like,
you had to scramble a little bit.
I had to scramble a little bit. I said, I mean, it's for, if we go in somewhere and, we can't, like we're up against, and we can't get to our weapon, it's to save ourselves, or save our buddies, saving lives.
Saving lives.
Yeah, and I was like,
That worked?
And it worked. And she's like, okay,
we'll do that. All right. So that helped in this
you didn't follow that right up with, but can we make this a little longer? So
that came a little late.
That came okay. Yeah.
she got a little more acclimated to the community by that time.
Things. Yeah.
But yeah, so I had some water jet cut, and then I took them from there and hand ground them and milling the tangs and all that. And we hired a couple part-time people that came in to help us with it. And those first groups and stuff that we were doing, Karen was in there running the sandblaster and sewing the sheaths and the carriers that were made for them because it was all done. And it just, it continued to grow.
Yeah.
And we did those, and then all of a sudden, other people learned about it. And what happened with Red, when we were just working with them in the Navy, we were at a show in California, and I had something I was showing and display, and the guy was asking about it. I was kind of telling him what I could because I couldn't go into detail, and he said, "Well, I have a friend that's a breacher in Virginia Beach, and I'll ask him about it because I haven't ever heard about this kind of thing." So he went and asked him, and the guy told him, he said, "I don't know what they're smoking. I ain't never heard nothing about that either." And he came back. He called us out at the show in front of everybody. I said, "Yeah, I called my SEAL buddy. You're lying. This is not what's happening." I said, "No, really, it is." And the guy that our friend Bob had called was Dom Rosso, and so he called him back, and he said, "Yeah," he said, "you need to talk to some other guys." And Red had been keeping it a secret because they thought they had this good thing going. They didn't want other people to take it over. And then all of a sudden it all changed, and Gold Squadron came in, and they wanted one to match their persona. They wanted one to look, different. What they do. And then Silver was formed, and they had to be different. They wanted a big knife instead of a hatchet. But we're doing what we could, and then others. Squadrons with Kevin decided they wanted in on it, so we started doing a specific design for a lot of different different squadrons within that to keep everybody happy, and then it just continued growing from there.
Incredible.
If you love America, then Black Rifle Coffee Company has you covered for the holidays. Go to blackriflecoffee.com, check out all of the gear, merch, apparel, and coffee roasting equipment. Once again, blackriflecoffee.com. I am a member of their exclusive coffee club, and I also get this big bag right here of Silencer Smooth delivered every month. You can go click on your favorite roast and set your schedule for delivery, and then bam, there it is on the front doorstep every single month. It is absolutely awesome. Go to blackriflecoffee.com, veteran founded, veteran run. Go check them out. blackriflecoffee.com. Thank you so much to Sig Sauer for jumping right on board out of the gate to make this podcast possible. Obviously, I am a huge Sig fan, having carried the P226 on every deployment downrange in the SEAL teams. But Sig was a supporter. They were friends well before I was a New York Times bestselling author, well before I even had an Instagram account or any social media presence whatsoever. So thank you guys all so much. Ron, Tom, Jason, everybody at SIG who gets up every day and continues to crush it and lead the way. SIG is always adapting. They're always at the forefront, whether it is firearms for citizens, whether it's firearms for our military, ammo, suppressors, optics, training, fire control units. They are doing it all, and they are always pushing that envelope and trying to do it better each and every day through innovation and adaptation. They crush. So thank you so much for that friendship and support. It will never be forgotten.
And how long did it take from when those first 16 got to your squadron for the other squadrons to be like, what's going on over there?
Quick. I mean, they were all like, hey, because I was the POC basically for Daniel, you know, everybody knew. It's like, hey, well, he knows the guy, and you know, and so they'd come and ask me, and so I would, well, you know, we can help you guys develop one for your squadron, and so I'd work with Daniel and whoever their rep was from their squadron.
Yeah.
And then, hey, what do you know, they'd send a picture and then, you know, we'd give it to Daniel. Daniel would go, I don't know, you know, and then we'd work on it and then they'd come up with whatever.
Right, a little bit different.
Yeah, a little bit different. Everybody's is different.
Yeah.
So,
oh, man. Yeah. And you carried this on every op?
Everything I went on. And then, and so with the sheaths, we had to kind of, you know, come up with a sheath that because it was initially it just mounted on your belt and there was no movement or anything. But when you're getting in and out of helicopters and vehicles and it jams up into your side, so I told Daniel, I said, hey, we need to get a swivel, some kind of thing that moves. And so that's probably the second sheath because the first one was just goes on your belt.
Yeah.
Then that was the
bigger one. That one looks a little bigger.
I think it had 2 slots in the back on the back
two slots
of
in
the
the back
carrier,
and just mounted on your belt.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it worked, but this is a way better system with the swivel.
Look at this.
And
And
everything.
once again, that leather, every one of those scratches tells a story. To include the time going after Zarqawi that it fell off.
Well, we had it was a different connector that went through the top there, held that swivel on there. And so I got off the helicopter, was running as a daylight mission. We rarely did daylight missions, but it was supposedly Zarqawi was going to be in this building, and there was actually 12 suicide bombers in the building, and they were like shaved and cleaned up and ready to go, you know. And so we got the target clear and everything. And then when you're leaving a target, everybody wants to know, hey, everybody got your gear. Make sure you got your gear. The first thing everybody checks is your axe. You know, you're like, oh. And my axe was gone. And all I had on my belt was the little loop.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was it, you know. And I'm just like, because they call Budweiser, that's what you call it. You say, hey, has everybody got everything? Budweiser. And it's like, I'm missing my axe. I came over the radio.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, and everybody's just like,
right.
You know, I'm like, hey, it's Charlie 4, I'm missing my axe, you know, and everybody's just like, oh no. So everybody's looking, you know, because, you know, if somebody loses their axe, it's a huge deal. You know, it's like losing a gun, you know. I mean, it's not a sensitive item, but it's a sensitive item to us, you know. So a friend of mine, he was walking through that wheat field looking, he found it, he holds it up, and I was just like, oh my gosh, you know. So glad he found that thing.
Crazy, man. And I don't know if we can talk about it or not. If we can't, we'll edit it out. But you have it on your belt when you pull Saddam out of that hole.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
man. And that one, you're walking. You got the intel, and it's like brush over it, leaves over it, dirt.
Yeah. Well, we had some human intel that you know showed us exactly where it was at, and then we just brushed it away, and they had a big styrofoam plug, you know, that they would put in there and then cover it with leaves and dirt and sand, and then they had a pipe for air. You know, we hadn't noticed it and we cleared it, and then so just dug it away, pulled it up, and the sand fell in, and in goes a banger.
Did you white light first or anything, or did you use?
Well, our guns, you know, you had your guns, you light on your guns, and you look in it, you know, you can tell it's you can see bricks, you know, where they bricked it up and everything.
Okay, so you know. Okay.
We know it's something.
Yeah.
You know, and the guy says he's in there. So.
Yeah. And so are you looking on nods first, and did you go?
Once we're white light, we flip the nods up,
so
you know.
Did that.
Yep. So we're white light. Oh yeah.
And you toss that banger.
Toss the banger in and
a 9-banger.
9-banger. Oh yeah.
In a confined space.
In a confined space. Oh. Yep. Kind of thing.
And then do you go in, or does he come?
No. So we're trying to get a dog to go in the hole, and the dog's just he's not wanting none of it.
Smart dog.
You know, he's like, I'm not going in there.
Way.
You know, and so finally, and then once he pulls the dogs back, we start hearing somebody talk.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, in Arabic or and the Terp starts talking back, and so it's like, okay, somebody's coming, you know, and he's getting closer. You could tell by the sound it's getting closer, and then hands come out of the hole, and then a big bushy head of hair, and then we grab him and jerk him out, and it's like, well, that's him. And you know, a big friend of mine who's really the guy. I mean, I helped him get him out, but he really, I thought he broke his back when we pulled him out. And it was just like, whoa. He stands him up, and he's like, holy cow, it's him. You know, and then a big Texan nails him in the mouth, knocks him down because he's got a gun. You know, he's armed, and so we had to make sure he couldn't get to that gun. You know.
What was he armed with?
Glock 18.
A Glock 18.
Yeah, it's a fully automatic.
That's okay.
fully automatic. President Bush has that now.
Nice.
So
good for him. Good for him.
Yep.
Man. And then you sensed, could you just sense that this guy was?
Yeah, well, I mean, not right at that moment, because he was pretty beat down, and he was. He said he was
getting that banger.
Well, he just said he was the president of Iraq, and he's ready to negotiate. He said that in English.
Okay.
Oh,
all right.
Yep. And we're like, well, that time's passed, brother. And one of the guys told him, he said, well, President Bush sends his regards.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So,
that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you have this hole though, so now you have essentially like an open door.
Yeah, well, we don't know what's in there,
right.
And so a buddy of mine, he's got his kid on, he's trying to get in it, and I can see that ain't happening, So I take my kid off, and I'm like, hey, I'll get in there, So he jumps out, I jump in, and I got my 45, and I can look down, I got a flashlight, and I can look down there, and I can see that it tees, and so I'm like, So I'm like, hey, give me another pistol, and so a guy hands me down a Glock with a light on it, and so I just kind of, I'm figuring out how to do this T intersection by myself, and so I kind of pull a Boondock Saints thing. I'm like, all right, so I just kind of come around the corner and cleared it, and it's just enough room, about a 6-foot area for a guy to lay down. He had a little bench he could sit on, and
really,
yep.
How far down was it?
Well, you could stand up and your head would stick out of the hole.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yeah. So
it was like a burrow.
Yeah, I mean, but it was nice. I mean, it was, you go down and it's brick, and then the ceiling's got beams, and it's parged cement on top of it. I mean, it was dry and real, and it had a fan in there, a little white fan. I don't know if you saw the video. So it was on Fox News or whatever. Yep. So they probably have it, but I just talked the whole time, talked about, hey, and my
you're
boots.
Videoing?
I'm videoing.
So you clear it.
Clear
go back,
it. I said, hey, give me a camera, So I got the camera and I video the thing, and I'm telling what it all looks like, and then I lay down, and I said I can lay down in here, and my boots are, sticking there, and you can see them in the video.
No way.
And so a friend of mine, Will, in Virginia Beach, they're watching this whole thing, They're like, hey, they got him last night or whatever, and they're watching this video. And they're like, they said the fourth ID or somebody captured him, and so, guys were like, really? I mean, not that couldn't happen. I mean, they're great guys. I mean, they were really good guys, third ID. And so Willie and them's watching this though, and they're like, what? How did they just come across him? Or, what happened? Yeah. And then they're watching the video, and Willie's like, oh, look at those boots. That's not freaking fourth ID boots. You know what I'm saying?
What are you wearing?
Like
Solomon's or something?
Yeah, it was like Solomon's.
Nice.
Yeah, so I mean, just not issue boots.
Right.
So he knew.
He's like, it's those little things, it's those details.
Something's not right here.
Man, so you take that video down there, and someone was bringing him just bringing him food every day type of thing.
Yeah, he'd get out. I mean, no, he was never in there for any extended period. They had crows all up and down the road that would notify him, and then he had 2 cooks there. 2 of his guards were there that we captured.
Okay.
In the hut, and he would be in that hut all day.
Okay.
And then if we came down that road,
then
they jump in there, cover him up.
Got it.
Those guys are smoking and joking. Hey, no problem. Nothing to see here.
Yeah.
So that's how it happened. So they took him and threw him on a little bird, flew him back to Tikrit into the palace, and then we got back up there, and then myself and then another guy and the commander flew him to Baghdad, and that's when you could feel. He was just an evil guy. I mean, he had this presence about him that was very unnerving. I don't know. So he would reach up. I had him by the beard, and he'd pat your hand every now and then. Another guy had him by the back of the head, and so we just swung his head back and forth. Would make him quit touching us. Because he was cuffed in the front. And he'd reach up and touch your hand.
How come? What was he doing?
I don't know. Because we had him, we had a good grip on him, because he wasn't jumping out of that helicopter, he wasn't hurting nobody in the helicopter. We had him, but he'd just reach up and touch my hand, and then so we'd go to make him quit. I didn't want him touching me.
And you could feel this
you just feel
evil presence.
Yeah, he was just not a good dude.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's cool. It's interesting. Did the other guy you were with, did he have that same sense when you talked about it later?
Yeah, everybody, and nobody really wanted to hang out with him. I mean, because people got pictures with him and stuff, and then I rode in the truck with him over to the helicopter. But it wasn't he had an air of like once he knew he wasn't being killed, then he was back in charge, and he had that air about him, you know. And then he was just had a presence. I don't know what it was.
Wow.
Presence of evil.
Jeez.
Yeah. So
man, and eventually you get to Baghdad, to that prison thing that they had there, and that's when we were on the next to neighbors on the river there when I was doing my time at the with the agency there, and we had the TF Knight SAS guys, we had our Indig, we had the CIA group, and then you guys were right there, and all the helos and all that stuff, and he was just down the road, and you were working out of there, still carrying this.
Oh yeah,
man,
that was it.
God, this thing has a lot of time downrange.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah, it's got over 1,000 missions on it. So
that is insane. Jeez. And you just keep going back. You're just on the train for all these years. You just keep going.
So back then we only had 3 squadrons, and so it was back in combat every 6 months. So you were doing 6 months, and then you're doing a 3-month tour over there. So it was pretty busy at that time.
Dang, that's wild. And then at some point you start carrying blades by Daniel.
Well, so my team leader and I sat down and we go, hey, we need a dagger to go with this axe.
Yeah. I mean, people watching, look at that. That is a companion piece right there.
It is, yeah.
I mean, that is beautiful.
So we sat down, and him and I, we drew it out on a table in the squadron lounge, and then asked Daniel if he could possibly build it. And that's the number one right there of the daggers that, I don't know if you'd done a dagger before. You did these.
No, that was first one that we did. I'd done them as a custom maker before, but it's the first one we did as a manufactured piece. And so that one was, even though I handmade that one, we used it as the model to set up the production for that. And so, we then we went through and we did however many y'all needed. I don't even remember. It's quite a few. And, and then we changed it up a little bit because we had a lot of other guys that you had connections with that said, I need one of those daggers. And we took all this stuff real seriously, and any design that we made for a specific squadron or something, that they're the only ones that could have it. And so, but a lot of them wanted the daggers, and it's a pretty straightforward, nondescript style. I mean, there's nothing really outstanding about that, but we changed the handle a little bit, and we still did those for your guys, but then we offered it for sale to other units as we call it our tactical dagger. It's on the website now. And it's been there since the beginning, since we did this. It's just because there are some professionals that need a double-edged knife. Everybody, hunters and stuff, that don't have a whole lot of use for them. But as far as when you need that kind of tool or weapon, then that's what you need.
Man, this is 001 right there.
Yeah.
001, 001. Man, and where would you carry this on your kit?
I just carried it in. I had a sheath for it, you can see, and then I'd put it, I'd molly it or use 550 and tie it on my plate carrier, and I carried it like right there. Yes.
Man, that's amazing. So much history in these things. Man, it's just keep going down range, and then eventually, though, you decide to get on out.
Well, I got shot up in Afghanistan, eventually 2011, and ended up retiring 2013.
So they made you after that?
Well, I mean, I was pretty messed up with, at the time. I'm better now, I'm still rehabbing or whatever, but it was 20 years. I was right at 20 years, and so I went ahead and retired.
Jeez. And that one, you got shot up pretty good.
Well, I just took a PK round through the chest. And
that's just that.
Yeah, it shattered a bunch of bones and went out my scapula and messed up a bunch of nerves in my left arm. And so, that's just one of those things, when you're chasing people through the palm groves and stuff, eventually you're going to catch one.
And what year was that?
2011.
So 2011. And what month was it?
March.
In March of 2011. And who were you after that night?
Well, we had been chasing, we were in Kunduz, Afghanistan, and the Uzbeks were coming across the border, and they were just coming in platoon strength, like 18 strong, heavy weapons, RPGs, and this, that, and the other thing. So our job was to watch them come in, and then they'd bed down at a house, and then we'd hit that house. Yeah. And so we were after a group of those guys, and there were 2 security guys they had set out And then so my team came in on little birds, took out one of them, and the other one ran. And so we were chasing the second one when he had hidden somewhere in the. We were being guided from above, hey, he's here, and he wasn't. He was like 20 yards from us. And so as we moved up on that other one, he pops out and about 20 yards from me and took a round from him. So
how many rounds did he fire? Do you remember?
Hundreds. Because, once, I dove in a hole of water and got underwater, and then he was just shooting at the water, and then he started shooting at my buddy that was, around the corner. They kind of got in a little gun battle, and then that guy had that PK, and he just chewed up the whole side of the house, and then, and he reloaded, stuck it around again, and was just running him, the guy couldn't do anything. He's taking PK rounds, all over, and so he has to dive behind the house, and so that was
And you're shot at this point.
Yeah, so I finally come up out of the water when I realized he's not shooting at me, and I just kind of laid my gun up on the berm, and my nods are gone. I don't have any night vision, and I'm just kind of, I just start slow firing at the muzzle blast because I knew we didn't have a gun with us, a machine gun, and so I knew it was him. And so he figures out, I think, that he's taking some sort of fire from somewhere that's hitting him close to him, so he comes running like right back at me. So I'm just like, oh no, because I'm in this water up to here, and I got my gun. I can't raise it because the sling's through here. I can't pick my gun up. And so, he's just running right at me. He's from me to Daniel, and I'm shooting at his feet because I can't pick the gun up. He tumbles right here and drops that PK right beside me, and then he hobbles on out the gate, and then the Rangers get him outside the gate.
No, so you hit him at somewhere?
I'm not. I asked about it. I said, "Hey, was he shot in the foot?" Because he fell like right next to me. When I was cacking rounds at his feet. Because I couldn't raise it up.
Your arm's just jacked.
This arm's jacked. I can't do anything, and it's heavy. It's a H&K 416. They're heavy, laser and all that light on it, and the sling's keeping me from raising it.
Dude.
Yeah. So anyway, he dropped it right there, and I did. I asked, I think Carilla, Colonel Carilla was in charge of us, and he put my Purple Heart on like the field hospital or whatever, and I said, was that guy, did I hit him in the foot or anything? And he said I did. He said, yeah, he was wounded, and I don't know. So, but anyway.
It sounds like it.
Well, he fell and dropped the gun right there. So anyway, I don't know for a fact. So I'm just.
And where's that weapon today? Do you guys keep it?
I think they demilled it, and maybe it's part of part of maybe it's somewhere down at Fort Bragg.
Man.
Yep.
Dude, and then how long? So, are you thinking you're going to come back? Like, hey, I'm going to rehab this thing and come back? Like,
that night, finally I get up out of that water, and they thought I was dead because they thought body parts were flying off. When my guy was like, "Holy smokes!" and he sees, he's just like, and he thought when my nods flew off, I thought it was my head or part of my head.
Right.
Yeah, and he's just like, and then I disappear in that water, and he's like, "Oh, he's dead," And so I get up and I go and I walk back to the wall where I thought he was dead because I'm like, he's probably got to be laying here somewhere, and he had went around the next corner, and so I just put my red laser on and I walk back there and I'm like, "Hey." And I come back, and they're just like, dude, you're alive.
No way.
My new guy, he gets my pills out of my pocket I kept up here for the antibiotics and all that. He's all fumbling with them, and he drops them in the mud. And so I'm just I'm like.
And those are like antibiotics, like for infection and all that stuff. There's like 5 or 6 that you're supposed to take right away.
Yeah, and I'm like, give me your pills. So he pulls his out. I take his, and I get my fentanyl pop. And so I'm walking. So I walk up to the troop sergeant major, and I'm like, hey, Brad, where do you need me to go? And he's like, he sees it's me. He goes, get out of here, So I ended up walking to the helicopter and got on the helicopter, and because I knew I was, I didn't know how serious it was, but it was pretty. I had a really big hole in my back, and so yeah.
So it exited, expanded, tore a bunch of. Yeah, and it go right over your body armor or through?
Right over. Right over the top. Right over the top of it, just shattered my clavicle into a million pieces, and then just right at my lung and caused it to collapse a little bit, and then it went out my back, and but I couldn't use my arm, but I wasn't in a ton of pain because I had a fentanyl pop.
Yeah. But there's no medic with you.
Yeah, well, finally a medic shows up.
Oh, finally.
It was a Ranger medic.
Yeah.
He shows up.
After you're on the helo?
No, he come to the house, and he's like, I'm standing around with everybody else. He goes, where's the guy? Where's the
guy that got shot?
I'm like, that was me. And he's like, okay. So he comes up and he's like looking at the wound and he's got, I can tell he's got a needle. He's wanting to, you know, and I'm like, yeah. He goes, how's your breathing? And I'm like, it's fine, you know. And he'll come back a few minutes later, how's your breathing? I'm like, I'm good, man. I'm good. You don't need to needle D me. That's what he was wanting to do.
Yeah.
But I didn't need it, so I walked out to the helo, got on the helo. And
they stuff it or anything? Or what do they?
Yeah, I mean, the entrance room wasn't that big. They stuffed the back. The back was packed, you know.
Okay.
So it missed arteries, everything. I mean, it could have nicked one of them, and I'd have been dead because I was in that water, and you can't stop a bleed there.
Wow.
I mean, now they have like pellets they'll shoot in a place like that in the pelvis. Oh. But this area right here is if you get shot there, it's normally you die. You know, so somebody was watching out for me that night.
Wow.
Oh yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, so you do that, you get on the helo, and then you get back, and then you have lights and all the rest of it. Then do they see how bad it is?
Kinda. They didn't really. I mean, because my lung was collapsed a little bit because they just took me to a local as a German like hospital, you know, a little med station, and so I was in there for a day, waiting so I could get on C-130 and fly to Bagram, and I still had blood and dirt on me and this, that, and the other thing, you know, and they don't really understand, I don't think, that this is all in a million pieces, and so those bones are super sharp.
So every time you move it, are you like, hey, give me another pop?
Yeah, I'm just like, well, I mean, you know, this ain't good, you know, I know, but you know, they're not really, because that needed to be cut open and cleaned out, because one nick of one of those bones is an artery and you're dead. Yeah. And so really they just packed some black goop in the hole in the back and the front. I don't know what it was, some German medicine, you know. And so I was there for a day or two, and then ended up flying to Bagram, and I walk off the bus, and I'm standing there, and they run on the bus, and where's the gunshot wound guy, you know? And I'm like, is there another one? You know?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. So I'm like, well, I've been shot, you know, and they're like, oh, what are you doing, you know, and get me on this, wheel me in here, and so I'm sitting there with my X-rays, they X-ray it, and this doc walks by, Air Force doc, I believe, and he goes, have you been seen? And I'm like, kinda, you know, and he pulls out my X-ray, and he's like, holy smokes, so he's like, get him into surgery now.
Okay, so now someone.
He busted it open, cleaned it all out. Probably saved my life. I mean, the guy probably did. So, I mean, because I don't know how much longer I could have hung out and not want them cut an artery.
Dang.
Yeah, all them bones.
Oh my God. So he cleans it out, and then does he get you on a flight to Germany?
Landstuhl, and in Landstuhl. Horrible flight from Bagram to Landstuhl, like a C-130.
C-130?
Yes, and we're stacked like 6 deep.
What?
Like stretchers. I mean, there's dudes on top. I'm the bottom bunk under here, and the dude on top of me, your face is like right here, and they're 6 deep, and it's just row after row of people that's blown up, legs gone, arms gone, gunshots, and I mean, just packed this whole plane. The nurses have barely even got room to walk. Oh yeah, on a C-130.
A C-130.
Oh, yeah.
Not a C-17.
No.
Why?
No, I don't know. I don't know. That's just what they had, and you know, it took forever to get to Germany. Finally got there. Horrible flight because I'm not even supposed to lay on my back. I got this massive hole, so I'm just like trying to turn up, on my side, in this
bunk. Did you have an
bunk.
escort from your command or anything? You just fire?
No, I didn't get an escort until I got to Germany, and then the command flew somebody over and picked me up in Germany. Yeah, so it was a.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then I get to Germany, I'm on the bus, and I'm the only person on the bus that's not missing a limb. So it's mostly Marines from Helmand, and I'm the only gunshot wound. And they're all missing legs, arms. I mean, a bus full. It's full. Coming from the plane to, yeah. So.
Oh, man. And how long are you in Germany before you fly to the States?
A couple days in Germany, and then came to Walter Reed and was in there for a couple weeks.
Mm-hmm. What are they doing at Walter Reed?
Well, they put a titanium bar in, and
so more surgeries.
End up, and I said, "What are you doing about the hole in the back?"
What did that look like?
They're like, "Well, we sewed it up." So that's what they did, sewed up the hole, and then so just put a bar in here, and then so my buddy Mike Knoll, he's got a plane, and AJ Davis, who I were in green team with. They came and got me at Walter Reed and flew me back to Fort Bragg.
No way.
Yeah.
And then what are you doing? Going to rehab? Is there a?
Yeah, it's rehab. I mean, still rehabbing to this day, you know. But yeah, from there I just rehab for, you know, a year and a half, and I really can't get to where I can, you know. So I went ahead and retired after that. Okay. So yeah.
But you didn't really retire.
No, no.
You've been busy.
I have been, yeah. I've been busy.
Yeah, so you've not taken a break. I mean, you go to another government agency and start working there.
Yeah, we develop an axe for that group.
Right there, yeah, this one right here.
Yeah.
This is cool. I mean, I love that everywhere you go, you know, new axes and new, little refinements. You can see that the back on this one's a little longer.
Yep, it works better for certain things.
Yeah, for certain chores.
Mm-hmm. Every time Kevin changed particular jobs, I got to develop new products.
Yep, and this right here, so you can get this two ways. One with the with wood right here, and then right here with
cord wrap. Having the cord wrap on the upper end is really good, especially for heavy uses, you know, breaching or even woodcraft, which spike axes aren't great for that. But you know, if you got it, you need to do it, because if on a full tang axe, you know, you get chopped there. If you're splitting something, it can impact the handle. You can break your handle off. But with that one, with the cord wrap on it, I found now if you do that and you damage your cord, you just take it off and wrap another cord. You can get them at Walmart. So, I like personally, I like the half wrap handles. Don't look as nice, but they do offer some function.
And then you do that for another 10 years?
No. 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah, 3 or 4 years, and ended up because we were basically doing the same mission we were doing when I was in the Army, you know.
Yeah.
So, but with a whole lot less support and gear and everything else, and so I don't know, just kind of got to the point where one of the guys that owns Cryptic is Josh Cleghorn. Was a little bird pilot in Iraq. He flies. Then we do vehicle interdictions, and we became friends, talking about hunting and everything. And so he's like, "Well, you should come develop gear for us, you know, work for us, you know." And so I ended up stopping working up there, and I developed gear for Cryptic, and I work for Sig now some, and develop stuff with Daniel still, and do some contract work with.
I mean, you can't let it go.
Well, I was called on that though.
Okay.
You know, I mean, the whole, you know, we were getting people out of Afghanistan back in October.
Yeah.
Sentinel group, and they're a really good group that goes and rescues children, and you know, and so friends of mine from my Army outfit were doing it, and they asked if I could come give them a hand with it, and I went and did that. And so,
and is that like a nonprofit type?
It is. It's a nonprofit. Yeah.
Okay. Sentinel Group. They're still out there doing that.
Oh, yeah. They do it. Like, I mean, we'll probably go do some. I'll go with them somewhere this year and probably do something with them.
Oh man.
Yeah.
And how was going back to Afghanistan? Was that the first time you'd been back? Or no, you've been back with your.
Well, I've been back with
the other group.
Yeah.
But what was it like there, seeing that place?
Well, I mean, we were on the edges of it, you know, because you know. They're in charge now over there once we gave up the place. So, yeah, we were pulling Americans out, blue passport carrying Americans that were there, and I was in contact with you while we were doing it. Yeah, and thanks for
oh my goodness,
thanks for putting that out. You know, hey, these people are So
of course, man.
Yeah,
I was like, what are you doing? What? But you're over there. I'm getting texts from you like, oh man, and doing what I can, you know, on this side of the house, and. Man, but that's so. What was that like over there, grabbing those guys and getting them out? And
it was. I'll tell you, when you get a guy that looks Afghani, but he talks like he's from South Carolina.
Yeah.
He's like, man, I'm glad y'all are here. We thought nobody was coming.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, you know, so that was pretty cool because you really go, man, okay, we're making a difference. We're doing something, helping people.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, these people were just left behind. And I mean, they were there visiting their grandmother or whatever, you know, over there, and just got left, and they couldn't get out. So we actually had to work with, and I hate to say this, but with the Taliban, because they'll take money and they'll take whatever, you know. They were easier to work with than our own government. So, I mean.
Not shocking.
No, okay. Well, but anyway, they did. They would work with us.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
Was it pretty dicey?
Well, when we were out, you know, we were out doing some reconnaissance stuff, you know, and had to figure out places to, you know, for people to come over, and it was sketchy because they were right there. You could see them, yeah. So,
jeez,
yeah.
And so that's about a year ago. We're almost about a year anniversary of that.
October.
That event. Yeah. So doing, okay, you were in there in October.
Yeah.
Oh, dang.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Still doing it. Wow. Okay. So we're gone. And you're
gone.
I forgot that was the exact timing.
Yeah.
And then you come back, and then Ukraine.
Yeah. Some folks needed to be got out of Ukraine, out of Kharkiv, and so we went in and pulled those guys out.
This is with a different group now, but still a nonprofit type of a.
No,
this is a security group now.
This is a security group. Yeah.
With a name that, Talos, and I got to talk to Amazon about that because usually they don't use names of. Because it's not in the book terminal list, but it is in the Amazon Prime series. So I'm going to do a little research onto how. Because if I was putting in the book, I would have done research, obviously, and been like, okay, I probably should change this. But it's one of those things that you just assume that Amazon is going to do because they check all the names. They check every name more thoroughly than Simon & Schuster, my publisher, did. So we had to change a couple names from the book because they actually existed. I didn't even know, but you have to do these, checks with the lawyers and everything to make sure you're not, putting somebody in a bad light who's actually a real person or whatever. But I figured they'd do that for this, but I remember when I read it in the script and I was like, Talos, I'm shocked that no one has this. Yeah, it's a great name.
It is. Well, it's a great
Talos,
company.
thank you guys. Hopefully it helps. It doesn't hurt being in the Amazon series. But you go over with them because you know the guys that run that.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So we go over and Sentinel came over as well. They came over and helped too. And so we were getting people out of the eastern part, getting them into the western part, getting them set up and, where it's a little safer. And so, yeah.
It's dicey.
It's super dicey, yep. There's cruise missiles coming in and mortars and, every night, so it's a war zone. It's a Stalingrad looking place.
Yeah.
So.
And at first you're not armed.
No. We weren't armed at all. We get in there, we took a 24-hour train ride to get from, Lviv, all the way to Kharkiv. Okay. So it was like going across Texas on a train going like 25 miles an hour. Yep. So they give you this chunk of, we didn't know okay, they got food or,
right.
They don't. And so, but the conductor, he brought us a chunk of like this cured pork fat and a big piece of bread.
Wow.
So that's what we had and for the whole ride. So.
No kidding. Yeah. And then you text me while you're over there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what? You're doing what? Like, oh, geez. And you end up getting a Fox News journalist who is really wounded.
Our guys,
horribly.
so we have our crew. I was pulling out, and then our crew was still in Lviv, and so we get contacted by some people, and they're like, "Hey, are you with this guy?" And I'm like, "Well, no, I'm not, but my guys are right there." So our guys were going to meet to get him, on how we got him out of there, or how they got him out of there. So it was a little sketchy deal because they took a mortar. Their vehicle took a mortar, and killed his whole crew, and then he was really injured badly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I remember seeing those texts and, okay, can you make sure that they know how bad this is? And I was like, absolutely. And I'm texting people that I know over there and just say, just want you guys to know that this, and they were, well, they were dealing with it. I think. I think they, ended up getting him out of there and.
Yep.
But
once he crossed that Polish border, he was good to go. But it was hit and miss. Because they're out. Really, they're looking for Americans over there. So the Russians are.
Yeah. Man, how long did you spend over there?
Month. 3 weeks, and then I went back and did a PSD again. So I've got about a month over there.
Dang, man. Yeah. And what did you bring since you couldn't bring a rifle? What did you have? What kind of kits did you fly in with?
Well, actually, you can't. There's no weapons, So I did take one of Daniel's knives, and to carry, and carried that the whole time I was there. And then once we got there, the guys gave us AK-47s and Makarov pistols, and so we were armed once we were there. And then we ended up teaching them how to shoot a javelin, a in-law rocket. So because we weren't there to do that.
Yeah.
But they were like, hey, do
you know how to do?
Do you know how to shoot these things? And I was like, well, yeah. Actually, I do. So, anyway, that worked out good too.
Man.
Yep.
Dang. I'm afraid to ask what you're doing next month. Like where I can expect to get a text from.
Well, I'll be up at SIG teaching.
Good. All right. Text me from there with you and Kyle.
Yep.
Teaching at SIG.
Academy.
Yeah. I love that. That'll be a good one.
Okay.
Oh man. Wow, that's amazing. Gosh. Keeping busy. Keeping busy. And then we have SIG Blade being made that you guys are designing together, which is pretty cool because we got to do the SIG Hunter Games last year together. And you'd never know that you were shot like that just by watching you move through the mountains. Because, man, I mean, mountain goat right here. And that was awesome. We got a great team out there. Bullet Valentina had an elk guide from Oregon. And so that was our team and ended up doing pretty well.
Second.
Pretty good job. Second place, not bad. And but you never know that there was anything wrong with that shoulder.
Yeah, well, it's just one of those, it's not a visible thing. It's just nerve damage, So it's my new 100%. That's all you got to say, It's like
new 100%. Yep. I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. Then you got to go to Virginia Beach also and do that.
I did.
That Matto told me I need to do.
Alex Oliver's Virginia High Performance.
Yeah.
I recommend it to any of the SEALs or whoever. I mean, if it's wounded or it's just such a great rehab, and you get to really, re-blue, I think is the best word for it, because guys, they get kind of where they're so busy, they don't take care of themselves and their diet and their eating and working out, and I mean, and they just really hold you to it up there, and you definitely come out of there a better person, and not just in physically but mentally. Because you do a lot of brain games and mental, how to handle situations, to know that you're whatever, like if you're having some issues, from the war. Honestly, some guys do, and so it's a good break to go.
Yeah. Matto, he was my command master chief at SEAL Team 2, and that's the first time that I heard your name was from him back then. And he spoke so highly of you, and I was like, oh man. And then I got to meet you through Daniel at SHOT Show, and then we got to really hang out together at SIG Hunter Games, which is awesome. And man, just so much respect for everything you've done for this country. And I mean, keep going back for more.
Yeah,
man, incredible. But we're at that, and then we start talking to Tom Taylor, and he asked you to design a knife for SIG Legion with Daniel, and that's coming out here soon.
Should be coming out in the fall, right?
That's what our plan is. We're a little backlogged right now, kind of based on the popularity of some new book series that's coming out. But
man, I'm so sorry about that. So,
so it's coming up soon. We're going to for sure get it in and try to get it so it's pre-Christmas availability, and everything's ready to go pretty much. We just got to schedule the time and make sure everybody's happy with finishes and materials, and so far it's looking good.
Man, yeah, backlog, because so this is the mid-size or the compact, and there's the full size, but this one doesn't have what makes the one in the show so difficult to make, which is this front spike here for chores. And when I put this this book together, and I was thinking about what I grew up reading and what I grew up watching, and of course the Rambo First Blood Part 2, and of course having an iconic blade attached to that series that was important to me growing up. I thought, what's a kind of a modern take on that brings that to the next level for the 21st century, that is still a weapon that helps develop the character, and that he is a student of warfare. He will always be a student of warfare. So it has this link to the past, but use in the present. And man, without you watching Last of the Mohicans and going to Daniel back in 1992 and doing what you did and carrying this all those times downrange, wouldn't have gone to your former commands, plural. And this might not be in the book. It might not be on every billboard in Los Angeles with Chris Pratt holding it like this. And these guys might not be getting all these orders that are backlogging everything here. But this is obviously an important thing to me. I've been a knife person my whole life, and and a hatchet person. I had Rogers Rangers rules in my room, and there's a couple things where he talks about hatchets in there, and I just loved that. I loved reading about history of warfare, and then in the 80s, of course, reading everything I could find on terrorism and insurgencies and counterinsurgencies and that sort of thing. But always a student, no matter what I'm doing, whether it was in the SEAL teams or as a writer today. But for my retirement ceremony, I gave my kids 4 things, and one was a Bible with their name on it. The other was an antique brass compass, and I gave them those things, and I said, these are here to guide you. And then I gave them a leather-bound copy of the Constitution and said, and here are your natural rights. And then I gave them this, and I said, here's the means to defend it. And then not that long afterward, I had those. So now I had multiple, because each of the 3 kids got one, and you were kind enough to send one to me for my retirement ceremony. And so now I had 4, and I was sitting there. I'm like, I need a logo, and now it's become, something that's recognizable, especially now with Amazon, and now that's backlog and everything. But without this crew right here, that wouldn't have happened. So, and it is an important part of the character to develop. It tells a story. Just like if I see somebody walk in here and they've got like leather belt, leather holster, cocked and lock 1911, that tells me something about them. And I see somebody come in and they got a Kydex something or other and a striker fire pistol or whatever. Maybe they're a little younger, or maybe it tells them a story. So I like to use tools and weapons to tell stories, almost using them as characters. And this is an important piece of that. So thank you both for making it possible.
Thank you. It's an honor to work with you both, on you and Kevin, on your previous professional levels, and then now moving forward with what you're into now and all. It's just been an honor to be part of it, and I get the opportunity to work with Kevin on a regular basis. So it's I've been very blessed to be associated with the best in the business.
Well, I feel the same way, and we feel the same way as well. So thank you for everything you've done for the community. People will never know, exactly how much you've done, and people will never know exactly how much you've done. But thank you both.
Yes, sir. Well, thank you.
Let's go build some blades.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Take on the holiday season with the help of Navy Federal Credit Union. When you use the Navy Federal Cash Rewards Card, you can earn up to 1.75% cash back on all purchases. You can redeem your rewards as soon as you earn them, and using the Navy Federal mobile app makes redeeming easier than ever. Enjoy the rewards of cash back without any annual fee, balance transfer, or foreign transaction fees. There are no limitations on rewards, and they never expire while your account is open. Learn how you can get cheer to last all year with the Cash Rewards Card at NavyFederal.org. Our members are the mission. Insured by NCUA, rates are variable and range between 12.65% and 18% APR based on credit worthiness. ATM fees for cash advances are up to $1 at non-Navy Federal ATMs. Message and data rates may apply. Visit NavyFederal.org for more information. Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. To find out more about Daniel Winkler and Winkler Knives, go to winklerknives.com and follow them on Instagram at Winkler Knives. Kevin Holland has neither a website nor an Instagram, so you can search around on the internet for a little more about him. My next novel, Only the Dead, hits shelves spring of 2023. You can go to my Instagram or my website for more information and to pre-order. You can follow me at Jack Carr USA on the social channels, officialjackcarr.com. That is the website. You can sign up for the newsletter there and click on shop for the merch. And until the next time, take care out there. Stay safe, be strong, keep fighting. My collaboration with KC Cattle Company is out now. Kansas City Cattle Company, veteran owned and operated. There are 2 exclusive Jack Carr bundles. One is for the whole family, and that includes their award-winning Wagyu uncured beef hot dogs. And a second bundle option, which is my favorite, includes something special: a massive Wagyu tomahawk steak and, across tomahawks, branding iron. So you'll be able to add the Cross Tomahawks logo to all of your steaks. It's awesome. And you can go to officialjackcar.com, click on shop to check that out. But hurry, because they are going fast.